Hello, and welcome to the Church of St. Bartholomew in Hyde, Winchester. I'm Phoebe, and I'll be giving you a virtual tour of our ancient church. Our patron saint, St. Bartholomew, who was one of the disciples. He died a martyr's death, being flayed or skinned alive, and is always portrayed with a flaying knife. St. Bartholomew's Church was built around 1130, next to the abbey for its lay workers. The abbey was pulled down during the dissolution of the monasteries, and the stones were reused in many buildings, including our church tower. When a prison was built on the land in the 18th century, the convicts digging the foundations found graves, scattering the bones, amongst which were thought to be of King Alfred and his family. The bones were then reburied in the churchyard under this gravestone, which just had a simple cross. A BBC documentary in 2013 followed the excavation of the grave, but when the bones were carbon dated, they were not 9th century, but later medieval ones, of 5 individuals which were then reburied. This is the entrance to St. Bartholomew's. Over centuries, the church has been destroyed by fire or altered in different ways, but this Norman doorway is one of the original parts of the church. Let's go in and see inside the church. On your way, have a look at the ancient stoop from Hyde Abbey, used for dipping your fingers in and crossing yourself before entering the church. The handrails on the steps down into the church are made of mahogany and iron, which came from a Southampton to Isle of Wight ferry sunk by enemy action in World War II. Below the window is a 19th century depiction of King Alfred. Above this is a stone slab. This was originally in Hyde School, founded in 1846 and brought into the church when the school was demolished. The stained glass window shows King Alfred. He is seen with children holding books illustrating his love of learning. This window shows the nativity scene with the Virgin Mary and Christ child, surrounded by the shepherds and magi. Either side of the window are memorial panels. One is in memory of the Reverend William Williams, who was vicar here for 36 years. It also commemorates his founding of the Hyde Schools and the restoration work he made in the church. The other memorial is to another parish vicar, the Reverend Lewis Humbird. The window depicts on the left the 3 Marys meeting the angel at the tomb, and on the right St. John taking the Blessed Virgin Mary home. To the left of the window is a 15th century niche containing a more modern carved statue of St. Luke. The brass plaque is in memory of Thomas Charles Langdon and his wife. The pulpit was donated in 1910. We can see the figures of St. John the Baptist with a crook and lamb, St. Bartholomew with a book and flaying knife, and St. Paul with a book and sword. We are now at the top of the nave where the choir begins. The 2 areas are separated by a rood screen. The screen is of solid oak and richly carved and gilded. The rood is a cross of Jesus. Above his head is Deus, meaning God, and below his feet, Homo, meaning man. The figures of the Virgin Mary and St. John are either side of the cross, and below are kneeling angels. The inscription says, "By thy cross and passion, good Lord, deliver us." Those who pass under the cross are reminded it is only by Christ's suffering on the cross that we are able to approach God's throne through his love. At the bottom of the screen are painted icons, one showing St. Bartholomew with a flaying knife. Here is the oak lectern, donated by Brigadier Henry Vandeleur in memory of his wife Jane in 1945. We are now in the chancel. The stained glass window depicts Jesus with Mary and Martha. To the left is another memorial to the Reverend William Williams, who rebuilt the chancel in 1859. The pipe organ was installed in 1881. The next stained glass window is of Melchizedek, a holy priest from the Old Testament here blessing Abraham. Above the altar is a large stained glass window of the Passion of Christ. The left window portrays Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane and rousing the sleeping disciples. The right window shows the worship of the angels and the dove of the Holy Spirit, and Christ bearing the cross. The middle window shows Christ in majesty, and below that Christ with doubting Thomas. We are now in the Lady Chapel. The window above the altar shows the shepherds visited by the angels, and on the right, Christ's ascension into heaven. Below this is a small reproduction triptych, a copy of the 15th century altarpiece of the patron saints of Cologne. When closed, it shows a scene of the Annunciation. When open, the Adoration of the Magi, with Cologne's saints Saint Ursula and her virgins, Saint Gereon and his warriors. We now come into the transept, the part that creates the cross shape in a church. The stained glass window shows Christ blessing St. Peter and 3 apostles. Below the window is a brass plaque to Lieutenant General Francis Carey, who died in 1887. Below is a contemporary font with a richly coloured glass basin illuminated from below. This is an octagonal portable font. Above is a brass plaque in Latin in memory of Edmund Poor, who died in 1599. The stained glass window portrays St. John on the left and St. Barnabas on the right. St. Barnabas is particularly important to Hyde Abbey. He is said to have worked miracles there, and pilgrims came far and wide to seek his help. Below the window are early 12th century column capitals from the cloisters of Hyde Abbey, which were found in recent community digs. They are the only ones of this type in existence in the country. The next window shows Jesus with a kneeling Mary Magdalene and further column capitals from Hyde Abbey. The wooden cover over the font commemorates Robert Francis Kent, who died in 1943 while a prisoner of war. At the top is the Archangel Michael with a defeated dragon at his feet. The nave is separated from the north aisle where we are standing by 4 round arches on pillars. Parts of the columns are late 12th century, and the remainder are copies based on these medieval fragments. Here are 2 tablets in Latin in memory of James Bolter a Paisley, vicar of St. Bartholomew, who died in 1699. The memorials explain how his family were exiled from France because of their Protestant beliefs, and how Winchester welcomed them with open arms. On the south wall is a stained glass window of St. George standing over the body of the slain dragon. The next window shows St. Paul. Here are 2 wall tablets in memory of the Reverend Josiah Heseltine, vicar of St. Bartholomew until 1709. These are memorials to the men of Hyde who died in the 2 world wars. The lower memorial lists the 29 who died in World War II, and the copper panel lists 75 men who died in the First World War. Here is the life-sized figure of Walter de Aston, elected abbot of Hyde Abbey in 1222. This oak sculpture was commissioned by the Hyde 900 community group. Behind Abbot Aston is a triptych giving the history of the church on the wing panels. The centre panel lists all the vicars from 1301. Below is the former strong box. From 1812, all parishes had to have an iron box to store the parish registers. After a modern safe was installed, the strong box was no longer needed, so it became a donation box. Hence Church Maintenance Fund, painted on the side. I hope you've enjoyed your tour around St. Bartholomew's, and that when times allow, you'll come and see the church for yourself. St. Bartholomew's is in a benefice along with the churches of St. Lawrence and St. Swithin upon Kingsgate, both ancient churches in the city centre. If you'd like to know more about our churches, please see our website. We still celebrate King Alfred each year in October with a special church service. Over that weekend, the community group Hyde 900 organises lectures and activities on the theme of King Alfred and Hyde Abbey. Each year there is also a community dig to look for more remains of Hyde Abbey. We take part in the annual Ride and Stride event to raise funds for the upkeep of ancient churches in Hampshire. St. Bartholomew's will be open that day, so if you're taking part, please do drop in.